I've been doing cold cases a long time for TV, right? So it's really important to keep everybody on the table for a long time until you can rule them out, right? So Hansen, when I got the case, was right there, and I went down that hole for a long time. There's also an article from the Chicago Tribune in 1957 that describes a joyride that happened. People that were in that joyride car have been named in the media. So I said, wow, let me look into this joyride. Right? And the joyride is as follows.
Hey, welcome back to Detective Story. I'm Mike Hammond. Thanks again for joining in. We really appreciate it. We got a great show for you today. Of course, my pal Chris Kafcas is here with us, as always, the co-host. And we have an amazing guest with us today, Michael Weber. Hey, Michael, thanks for joining in. Michael is an executive producer, a true crime media expert. She is producer of shows like Gangland, Chicago ER, UFO Files, Brazil's Roswell, which I gotta watch that one. Sounds like one.
Yeah,
a reporter for ABC News at one time. Now the executive producer and owner of the Michael Group Limited. What am I missing?
That's a really awesome introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, well earned. But that's not why you're here in total, right? Today, we're going to discuss one of Chicago's, if not most infamous, one of the very most infamous cold case murders, right? And that is the murder of the Grimes sisters, Barbara and Patricia, right? From 1956, still open. You could argue outside of the St. Valentine's Day massacre, which nobody's got a lot of interest in trying to get to the bottom of, the Grimes sisters is Chicago's most infamous cold case. You agree with that?
I do.
What's the context there? Like, what was it about this homicide in a specific, let's say, time and place, Chicago, in that era that made it have such a huge impact, and how?
Right? I'm happy to try to answer that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, well, so, in 1956, child murders weren't common, right? You had the Schuessler-Peterson murders that were a year before. You had the Grimes sisters, and then there were some subsequent ones, Judith May.
May Anderson.
Yeah,
right?
Bonnie Lee Scott. So this was really one of the first, and it shook the city, right? This is when people started locking their doors,
Yeah, that's
keeping
what Mike
their
was
kids
saying.
in.
Yeah, kind of. They call it the end of Chicago's innocence, basically, right?
It was. 300,000 people were interviewed.
300,000.
This was one of the largest manhunts in Illinois history.
How many police were? I think I remember having a conversation with you about this. That how many investigating? Like, how many police were on the streets?
That was Judith May Anderson in 2000 and some, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Grimes sisters matched that number at the time. But before we get down that, let me interrupt real quick for a second. I have some business to tend to. One, our friends at Gun Barrel Coffee. This is Chris's.
Yep.
Keep that separate.
Touching.
And mine, Gun Barrel Coffee, our partner, make great coffee. Good friends. Sal, he's a vet. He takes care of vet, first responder charities, donates $1 of everything that he sells to these charities. So please be supportive. You can go to him at gunbarrelcoffee.com. You go there, he's given us our own coupon code, Detective10. It's the word and the number, Detective10. You get 10% off. It's good living, and it's great coffee. So please do that. We appreciate it. And so I have my notes here a little bit on the Grimes sisters, but let's kind of briefly here. There is no shortage of media out there about the Grimes sisters. They basically get permission from their mother to go to watch Late Show at the Brighton Park Theater, right?
Yep.
Which is on Archer Avenue over in, what is that, Brighton Park?
Brighton Park,
obviously,
yep.
right? And they go to the late movie, which is Love Me Tender, Elvis Presley, which does play a role in this in a couple of ways. And they basically are not seen or heard from again for, a month, basically.
Almost a month.
and then their bodies are found nude. They're deceased out on German Church Road in then unincorporated Cook County, correct?
Yep. It was, on the county line. So we have a jurisdictional issue, right? We had Willow Springs Police and CPD investigating.
Right, because for us, we were handling the missing, right? And then when they're found and it's determined to be a murder, although we can get into that a little bit, it is clearly they were murdered. But we have I got notes here that I want to rail a little bit about the then coroner, McCarran. How about he's long dead, so he doesn't care what I think about him. But when working cold cases with my partner, Jim Hennigan, who we had several of these cases. Walter McCarran, coroner was an elected position back there where medical examiner is an appointed position. It's not that it's not political anymore, but as far as in my time on the job, medical examiners have all been doctors, right? And so I don't know that Walter McCarran was a doctor, but what he was definitely was a grandstander who did not let a chance at him being in the spotlight get in the way of any investigation.
100%.
Is it fair to say? I mean, I had multiple cases that I read these files, and it was not just cringeworthy, it was angering to hear the way he would handle coroner's inquest. He would grandstand. He would give the families hard times. It was, and in reality, he damaged this case probably from the get-go, right? By
absolutely. Games. He withheld evidence. That he withheld autopsy results, really important information from the autopsy results. Ultimately, Harry Gloss, who I'm sure you're familiar with, went against Walter McCarran. And he told the public that there was, semen found, that the girls were bruised, that there was, indications of violence, which was never released.
I mean, what seems odd to me is that his cause of death officially is secondary shock due to exposure. They're found, if I'm correct, they were found naked.
Yes.
In an unincorporated area, so rural, a rural area.
Still is.
Very rural.
30 days after their disappearance.
Yep.
So I've seen some TV shows, right? And it would seem to me that the cause of death would have been ruled a homicide, because why would two girls from the city 30 days after they went missing be found naked? Hypothermia didn't cause their death. Whoever took their clothes off and threw them in the woods caused their death, right?
Right. I mean, the smart play there and the play that you'll mostly see from coroners, medical examiners, is pending police investigation, pending toxicology, pending further information.
And in this case, it would
rarely you say, "Oh no, he's going to make it this secondary shock," which is basically accidental death. And I think Harry Gloss, who was his chief investigator, correct?
Yep.
Was like, that's just bullshit.
Right. And if you read the autopsy reports, it says secondary shock, exposure, and then under it lists homicide. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about why he did that. Like, he refused to say that they were sexually assaulted, and he claimed that was because he was trying to protect the mother. And that's just ridiculous, right? The mother wasn't even asking for that. She was just wanting to know the truth. It's more his grandstanding, I think. But that starts us down this road of this being a problem, right?
Yeah, it's a problem.
Of that, and I think Harry Gloss was sharp enough to see, like, this is not being done the way. So, but give us your thoughts on this. Like, in that retrospective view, and then we'll move forward to your actual investigation, which is very extensive, and you're not going to have heard much of this, but I think you're really on to something. But historically, what's your thoughts on this as it shakes out?
The physical evidence,
or just in general, on the investigation? You've handled a lot of investigations, seen a lot of things, especially as the producer of Gangland.
Sure.
What were your thoughts when you first started looking at that?
I mean, the crime scene is a mess, right? Initial photos from the crime scene, you can see that it's trampled everywhere, right? Now we know this stuff in 2026. I can't, throw these guys under the bus so much in 1956. We didn't know about, DNA and things like that. But you had massive jurisdictional issues. No one was really in charge. You had, an elected coroner with limited medical knowledge. You had internal conflict between Gloss and McCarran, right? The two people in charge of this case were at war with each other. So it was a mess from the get-go, right? No one was really in charge. And that's unfortunate because there was a lot of manpower thrown on this. A lot. I don't think those cops, didn't do their job, right? The guys on the street were working it. They were working it, but they had very little to go with, right? They didn't know. People didn't know about the semen samples. They didn't know that this was a potential sexual assault, rape. They didn't know that there was bruising on the faces. The stuff that indicates that there was violence was not being talked about at the time.
Yeah.
So that makes it really hard, right?
Right.
Really hard.
Yeah, to tell you the kind of effect that this crime, and I said the movie would come back on this, just an illustration of how much attention this case got. It was initially thought, kind of reported that the girls might have run away. Sure. Right? Because by today's standards, they were, they would be considered pretty normal, average to good behaved young lady. By the standards of the day, they were thought to be just a little bit wild, probably for not, meaning sure. they take a ride in a car with boys, right? Like the standard was just much different. There's no evidence that they were ever into anything bad that I've ever seen, so in that initial stage where they were thought to possibly have ran away, Elvis Presley himself recorded a short bit for local radio trying to reach out to them. And it basically, I got the quote here. It was basically, he said, if you are good fans of mine, you'll go home and ease your mother's worries. Please go home. That's Elvis Presley, who was probably the most popular man in the world in 1956, recording this little bit for radio to try and get through to these girls, right? So there was probably a lot of pressure on everybody, and when you got people grandstanding and people doing this, it makes it super hard, right? So,
and you've got this, time period of over 3 weeks where it's just missing and it's being treated as a runaway. They're not investigating at that point, right? They're just looking and looking and looking. Had they taken this more seriously and listened to their mother, Loretta Grimes kept telling them that these girls would never run away, and they wouldn't. There was no indication that would ever happen.
So it wasn't treated as a potential homicide until after they found them.
After 3.5 weeks later, after they found the bodies, right? And that was by accident.
Right.
Who
found the bodies?
There was a man by the name of Leonard Prescott who was driving down the road at about noon, and he sees what appears to look like two mannequins laying over the guardrail. This is a really desolate area. He was on his way to get groceries, actually. What does Leonard do? Leonard goes home, and he gets his wife and his kid. I think maybe 2 kids, but I know there was a kid in the car. He takes them both to where the bodies are. He then gets out of the car, and his wife faints, and they locate, they identify that it's actually 2 dead girls. They then go to the police station, and they're called out, and they find the girls, and, the girls' father is called out to identify them, and at that case, things unfolded fast.
But, I guess back then they didn't really have the kind of context or language, but would it be safe to say by, in today's description, the bodies were staged?
It doesn't look like it was staged to me. When you look at it, it actually is very similar to the crime scene of the Schuessler-Peterson murders, right? These 3 young boys were killed in a very violent way a year before. They were then discarded near a guardrail at the side of a road in a forest preserve. Those things are identical in this case. But when you look at the position of the bodies, they're kind of in a T, right? So it looks to me as if they were dumped over the rail and rolled, especially the girl on top. it was not staged.
Gotcha.
It looks to me, and the way that the road and the guardrail, that the car stopped, got out, and they were just tossed.
And if I'm not mistaken, correct me on this if I'm wrong, but the lividity didn't match the position of the body, right?
Well, we're getting into some area where there were theories at the time that the girls were stored somewhere, that after they went missing, and I can tell you what we do know now about the night they went missing, but the lividity that I am aware of matches them being in that spot for weeks. It doesn't match them being someplace else.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. So
and you understand lividity concept. So if you don't, for our listeners who do not, lividity is the concept that when your heart stops and you die, your blood starts to settle towards gravity. So it looks like bruising or purple skin. And that's a lot of times how you can tell if a body's been moved, right? If that lividity, the purpleness on the skin is face up, then you know that that's not the way they died or the place they died, right?
Yeah, lividity indicates they were put there soon after death.
Okay, so their hearts were still beating. Based on that, their hearts were still beating when they were put there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the issue of their stomach contents. Correct?
Sure.
They had found meatloaf in their stomach during autopsy. I guess the mother stated they'd eaten meatloaf or something.
I don't know if it was meatloaf, but the stomach contents are identical to their last meal. So that indicates that they died within 5 hours of disappearing or eating that meal. Had they been taken somewhere and held, right, we would probably expect them to be fed something. So that wasn't in there. There was no indication that they were malnourished. So that was the last meal.
Well, right,
Maybe.
Except that meatloaf was a fairly common meal in 1956, right?
I think it was tuna. I think that
Was it tuna?
I'm pretty sure that they ate a tuna sandwich, and I got to remember this, but I'm pretty sure it was tuna. Definitely wasn't meatloaf.
Yeah,
Definitely wasn't meatloaf.
Okay, so I got that from AI, so it could be complete bullshit, right? But it is not beyond the realm of possibility, although that whatever they ate, their captors could have fed them something similar, right?
Sure.
At the time, especially, so that philosophy then would say, based on everything we just said, those bodies had been in that spot for some time.
That's what I've learned.
And you believe that to be true?
Well, then you've got to kind of get into the information that, started coming in after the girls' bodies were found. There were some phone calls that came in that said that they were near Santa Fe Park. And I can get into that in a lot more detail. There were no indications that they were bound. There were no indications that there were no restraint marks. So if they were stored somewhere, I don't think that they were fed. I don't think that they were restrained. So I don't believe that. I don't believe that they were stored somewhere or held somewhere.
And what we mean by that, just to clarify, is in order, after a 30-day period, let's call it 30 days, it's not exactly, right? It's, I don't remember.
It's like 28 days or something.
Okay. So basically a month period, the only way you could have the same stomach contents that you'd had, 30 days prior is if the bodies are basically almost frozen, stored in very cool temperature where it shuts down the digestive system. But what confuses me then on that is the lividity, meaning that they're no, it's not confusing if I'm following your line of thought, where they are dumped there within hours of being picked up.
Also, in the condition of the bodies, there were rodent marks, so they were eaten. The rodents were eating them for a long time. I don't know.
Correct?
I don't know how to date rodent marks, but there were significant holes in their body from rodents. Portions of their faces were chewed off. They were out there.
Yeah, so that's going to not be something that happens right away for sure.
So, I mean, you've got lividity, you've got the rodent marks. It was freezing, right? This is
Yeah.
January.
Well, probably. I'm not an animal expert on that, but I would say within a day or so, that's going to happen, for maybe less. Some of my hunting friends are going to throw a fit and be on me about that, but that's good. I want to be corrected. So anyway.
Additionally, I mean, their feet are clean, right? Their feet are completely clean, which I think if you were held somewhere, there might be dirt on your feet.
Or
there
running
might be
through the woods or anything.
Right, exactly. Right. They did not walk. For whatever happened, their feet were clean. Their bodies were completely clean, which indicates to me that someone that night took them out there. And I've got plenty to prove that, that's what happened. Took them out there and dumped them.
I mean, that
and they didn't walk. They were unconscious.
Okay.
Because their feet are clean.
I mean, the clean feet kind of blows that secondary shock due to exposure out of the water. Right? I mean...
Right. You would think that if you were out there by accident or if something was going on, you'd walk, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Those girls were fighters. They were scrappy. They would have done everything they could have to help themselves.
So let's go. I want to go down your investigative rabbit hole here, because I think that you're on to something. I really do. And I think that there are people that you have found, I hear this from you, so I'm not going to say any other way, that have culpability potentially still in this, that are alive. Another big complicating factor, though, and I believe this originates with my old partner, Jim Hennigan, as far as I know. I'll tell the story.
Love Jim.
Yeah, he's a great man. We were partners in the cold case homicide unit, and did a lot of fun work together. He's a very smart guy, good guy. At the time they forced us to retire at 63 years old. Jim was getting on that, and we had a lot of cases going. We were trying to wrap up. We had a few weeks, I don't know what it was, 4 or 6 weeks left before he was going to be forced to retire. And one day he comes in with a lot of the Grimes sisters cases. And I'll be honest with you, I'm like, no chance of that, man. What are you talking about? Like, we already tried to tackle Judith Mae Anderson, which is a beast of a case.
I've been looking into that as well.
And we did a lot with that one. But so he says, I kind of grew up over there. It's just always bothered me. I just want to take a look at it, right? I'm like, okay, well, you do that. I'm going to keep doing what we got to get done to get stuff done. And then one day, he walks in on probably the only day of 3 or 4 years working together where I'm in the office before him. He walks in and I'm working at my desk. He puts down a piece of paper and he goes, read that and tell me what you think. And it was an old school. They used to do Q&As, they called them, where I'm a detective and I bring Chris Kafcas in for one of the various things you could be brought in for. And we do a Q&A where I basically say, this is the interview of Chris Kafka, such and such identifiers. And then I type Q, question, right? And then A, answer, and basically verbatim what you say, right? Fifth.
Take the fifth. I want my lawyer.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, he's been a brother-in-law. He's been around his brother-in-law too long. But in this Q&A, which was a young man at the time by the name of Dennis Laughlin, which is only a few weeks within, or a shorter time period, I don't remember the date of their disappearance, right? Yep. Dennis Laughlin says, I was at the movies. Do you know where you were at on the date that they went missing? Whatever, they would have given the exact date. He said, yes, I was at the movie theater, Brighton Park. What movie did you see? Love Me Tender, The Late Show. Same one they're at. Yep. Who are you with? I was with my boss from the horse stables. What's his name? Curtis Hansen.
Ken Hansen, yep.
Ken Hansen, right. Curtis is his brother. Kenneth Hansen. And he's got that highlighted, and I'm like, say what now? I just was like, this, did you type this? And he's like, no, this is in there, man. And I'm like, that can't be. So for you those guys that don't know, Kenneth Hansen was tried twice. Appellate court overturned it He was tried again, convicted, and died in prison for the murder of 3 young boys, the Schussler-Peterson boys.
Which was committed the year before.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. All of this investigation is critical to state, happens in the 1990s when an informant comes forward and says, hey, by the way, tells ATF, I know a guy who killed these 3 kids in the 50s, and they do pretty good work, and they figure out Schussler-Peterson, and they put a good case together. It's him, right? And so the reason that's important, go ahead.
Just to go back, but the 3 boys were found in similar fashion.
Side of a road, in a forest preserve, I think, within a 10-mile radius, and, dumped. And we can get into it. The way they died was very different. It was very, very violent. Very, very violent.
Yeah, they were sexually assaulted in horse stables and killed, by Kenneth, and maybe with the help of his brother Curtis. Different people. Kenneth was kind of a little more, for lack of a better word, effeminate, kind of low-key guy, dangerous.
Very.
A predator of a guy.
Horrible guy.
I have some friends of mine who actually arrested him for their murders in the 90s when ATF put out word, hey, we got a warrant for this guy, and they found him, arrested him. That's how I have this information about Hansen, his kind of persona. Curtis Hansen, on the other hand, was the opposite. Big, muscular guy. He was part of Silas Jane's horse mafia, was a independent killer for the mob, was a dangerous, scary man. In fact, when they brought in witnesses in the 90s to interview, when they started getting word this person knew, a girlfriend knew, Kenneth told them, a couple of them said wouldn't talk until they produced and showed them Curtis Hansen's death certificate to prove that he was dead. That's how scary he was. The theory being that Kenneth Hansen lures these kids there to ride horses or whatever, probably not hard to do, has his way with them. They freak out, and Curtis has to come in and help clean up, right? That's kind of the theory. Was it? Yeah. So, and then soon after, the horse stables burned to the ground.
Yeah, you've got the convicted killer of Schussler-Peterson boys sitting in the same movie theater as the Grimes sisters. It gets weirder, though.
But let me, real quick, and I'll let you go down that road, but let me, for perspective, Kenneth Hansen was not suspected of the Schussler-Peterson murders until the 90s when this information comes in.
Right.
So at the time that Dennis Laughlin was interviewed in 1956, short after the disappearance, the name Kenneth Hansen wouldn't have meant anything to investigators.
Nope.
It meant nothing to anybody.
Yep.
Until the 90s, and that's why Jim in 2004 or whatever finds this and is the first guy to say what I said when he read it, like, what?
Yep.
Yeah, and that's my reaction was like, and then I'm like, well, this isn't, their coincidences are coincidences, but this is an impossible coincidence.
Yeah, and there's more with those coincidences.
Right, because after they had burned their stables and that in the 50s to cover up the evidence, right? They moved their whole operation to the southwest side, right? Willowbrook or wherever that was. Very close to within 3 miles of where the Grimes sisters were found.
Ken Hansen used to house the Kittyland horses on a property, within a few miles of where the Grimes sisters were found. There's some discussion that actually they were found on his property. The reason that is because there is a police officer, or it may have been an ATF agent, that was on the phone with Ken Hansen. And they said, actually it wasn't ATF because they weren't involved in that time, but someone was on the phone with Ken Hansen when they found the Grimes sisters' bodies. And he said, they found those girls on my property. That's in documented police reports. I just don't know who that interview was with offhand. So that's a lot of coincidences.
Yeah, it's
no,
go ahead.
No bueno.
No, it's no bueno.
This is no bueno.
So where do you go from there?
Well, I mean, listen, when I got involved in this stuff was already, coming out. I still think Ken Hansen can't be ruled out. There's too many coincidences, right? But, so I looked at Ken Hansen a lot. But the more that I started looking into the case, the more I started to think that he wasn't involved, because the things that I was able to discover pointed elsewhere. Now, is he connected by the group that I think did this, right? Could my guys that I think actually were involved in this know Ken Hansen? Could they have been transporting the girls out to his property for something nefarious? I can't rule that out, right? You've got Dennis Laffin in the movie theater, who I can prove was in the same high school class as the person I think did this crime, right? Also, Willow Springs at that time was a weird place, right? There were tons of brothels. There was a lot of human trafficking going on.
It was a mob town.
Yeah, it was mobbed up. Yeah,
sure.
I mean, the sheriff at the time, we can prove, had connections. So it gets weird, right? This location on German Church Road where they were dumped, however, it's also a popular hangout spot for local teens. Everybody went out there. There were abandoned houses that they used to go party in. So it runs the gamut from being this kind of innocent place that teens just go to party to this really strange, brothel-ridden crime location, right? The whole area. So, and the people that I think were involved in this crime used to go camping out there.
Do you think it was multiple offenders? I
do. I mean, I think that there was one main offender, but I'm pretty confident somebody else was. Well, I know that. Yeah, there was somebody else involved. I don't think that person actually transported the girls out there. I think my guy did. But we can get to that. So yeah, Ken Hansen, right? I mean, you can't not look at Ken Hansen. Like, there's just too much. But I always thought if he was involved, I don't think he killed them. I don't know that they ever made it there. I think something went sideways in the car, and my killer panicked and dumped him. Now, where were they headed? Why German Church Road? Maybe because my guy camped out there. Maybe because local teens really went out there all the time and they knew it was desolate that night, especially at midnight, right? Especially at midnight. But were they going to Ken Hansen's? Were they actually going to see Ken Hansen, right? Who liked boys? Maybe it was Curtis. Maybe it was another bad.
See, her Kenneth's deviancy was towards young boys, as it turns out. But his brother Curtis, the scary dude, was also a known, reputed
pornographer. Right?
Pornographer, correct, and so made pornographic films. So there's a whole you let your mind go down.
You could go down a rabbit hole with that. Were the girls transported out there to make a film? Were they transported out there to see the Kittyland horses that we know were housed there in the winter? The same stuff that happened in Schuessler-Peterson, right? Those guys were lured to go see horses. There's a lot of similarities. To ignore it would be impossible. However, it was also a really well-known place for local kids. Really well-known. And people were out there all the time.
Well, the connection with your guy, and by the way, for our listeners, you're like, well, we're not going to name anybody by name right now because suspects at this point, at this juncture, because this is an investigation that is still active, is still ongoing, it has legs, especially with the work you've done. There are investigators still looking at it, and they need to interview these people, and they need to, while they're still alive, it needs to be done. As a homicide detective, you cannot let these things, it doesn't matter if the case is 100 years old, if it has potential, you can't sit around and wait on DNA and hope the DNA shows up. You have to go interview these people. We don't want to step on anybody's investigation. They have that opportunity. I'm sure they will do that. I certainly would. It's incumbent upon them to get that done.
If they need assistance, I'm volunteering Mike's detective skills in the in that investigation. I'm sure he would do it pro bono.
So we're going to go down this road, and I apologize because I know you'd love to.
Oh, there's so much I'd love to say, but we'll keep it.
As far as their names, we're going to leave that for now.
Of course.
To keep the potential prosecution in check.
Sure.
The integrity of the cases, I always like to say.
But you believe that one or more of the men responsible for this are still alive.
I know that one of them is, who I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know where he is.
I've met with him.
Do you have a microphone that I could drop on the table?
I'd like to take a moment from the program to have a real talk about safety and security. Toward that end, I would like to introduce you to my friends over at Blue Knight Security Solutions, your ultimate partner in protection. Blue Knight Security Solutions isn't just your average check your ID at the door security company. They're a team of elite detectives, investigators, and law enforcement professionals with unparalleled expertise. Whether you need their real-world investigative prowess or securing your home, business, synagogue, church, or event, Blue Knight has you covered. From risk assessment to tailored security plans, they'll ensure your safety. Blue Knight Security Solutions provides street-smart operators who can handle any situation. Contact Blue Knight Security Solutions today at 773-706-4920 or visit BlueKnightSecuritySolutions.com.
Let's back up a second here, Michael. Walk me through this, if you don't mind.
Sure.
How do you get from me saying, holy shit, Curtis Hansen is at this is impossible?
Sure.
It is impossible.
It's him, right?
He's not involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you tell us.
Yeah.
How's this work
So,
out?
I've been doing cold cases a long time for TV, right? So it's really important to keep everybody on the table for a long time until you can rule them out, right? So Hansen, when I got the case, was right there, and I went down that hole for a long time. There's also an article from the Chicago Tribune in 1957 that describes a joyride that happened that night. The people that were in that joyride car have been named in the media. So I said, wow, let me look into this joyride, right? And the joyride is as follows. There were 4 teenage boys that were visited by police at 2:00 in the morning. You have to remember the Grimes sisters were last seen at 11:30 on 35th and Seeley, right? By multiple witnesses. They were seen to be getting into a vehicle, a split windshield black Mercury, to be exact. Now, that's a very specific car, split windshield.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
Police are called to a home, and this is in the article, of a fight. Who reported this fight? We don't know. It could have been neighbors. It could have been someone in the house. And it was a father yelling at 4 kids because they missed their curfew, and he was pissed. So the police come and they interview the kids and say, where were you? What were you doing? We were out joyriding. Okay, who was with you? And can you come down to the station, right? Because the story got weird. They released them that night. A couple days later, they re-interviewed them, and actually 2 of them were called down to the Sex Crimes Bureau. The reason they were called to the Sex Crimes Bureau is because during their police interrogations, interviews, they said that they were with a 17-year-old girl and they raped her. Story goes they either raped her or she had consensual sex with them. Okay? So we've got 4 kids out joyriding. At some point during this night, the 4 of them are in one car at the corner of 35th and Seeley at 11:30. Something spooks 2 of the kids, right? They run into a bowling alley. The other 2 take off. So those 2, their whereabouts are missing from 11:30 till 2:00 in the morning when they are interviewed by police. That caught my attention because it turns out that one of the guys knew the Grimes sisters, which, you have to say, why would 2 girls get into a car with someone they didn't know? They knew him. They knew him. They felt safe. They felt safe enough to get in this car, and they were only blocks from their house. So that kind of, I said there's something more with this joyride. It's like Occam's razor, right? 35th and Sealy, it's all there. The times match up. Everything started matching. So I started going down that path. I started piecing together the sightings of the Grimes sisters that night, what we can confirm, what we definitely know is true. The cars that were, they were approached by multiple cars that night. So they go to the theater, right? They actually stay for a double feature and they leave. And they're seen by people leaving the theater and walking, right? Then they are approached. This is a very short time frame, right? We're not talking about hours. They're approached by cars of guys, cars filled with guys, which was really common on Archer, right? In 1957, like they just hang, or 1956, you're just hanging out, you're having a good time.
It's probably a cruising strip.
Yeah,
right?
cruising, big thing. Probably the same guys that used to go party in Willow Springs, right, on German Church Road. But so they're approached, and witnesses confirmed that they were approached by a black Mercury with a split windshield and a green car, right? So there was a little caravan going on here. So that started just, that's what we know about that night. They were on Archer. They were on 35th and Sealy. They were spotted darting in and out of storefronts right near 11:30. Now, were they darting and playing? Or were they scared? I don't know, right? But I do know at the same time, two boys got spooked enough in a car that matches the car that they were seen getting into to run away. Additionally, witness reports have come forward that there were screams heard in an alley soon thereafter, right? So were they sexually assaulted then in the alley? Did it go sideways? I think this crime was not on purpose. I don't think that whoever...
You mean their deaths.
Their deaths. I don't think that whoever took them that night planned to kill them. I think it was a sexual assault that went sideways. I think that, and I'm given the position of where I think the bodies were in the car, they were trapped. It was, one of those old couch-like kind of interiors, right? They couldn't get out of the back seat. And I think it went sideways and they panicked and then they dumped them. Now, the problem with that theory, right, that I run through my head is how can two kids pull off a crime like this? Clean bodies, no ligature marks. Well, that's if you believe McCarran, right? The coroner. They were bruised. They were bruised. Maybe they were suffocated, right? I don't know. There was semen. Was that semen, from a prior consensual sexual experience that one of the girls had? Or was it from our killer that night? Additionally, the guy that I think was driving the vehicle has allegedly confessed to the following, to a pretty good source who is no longer with us. She has died. That it was that it was a sexual assault gone sideways. He actually took them out to German Church Road to spook them, and he forced them out of the car at knife point and naked after stripping them, and that he was going to turn around and come back and get them, but when he came back to get them, they were gone. So once I found that out, that this person was very credible. She's not a whack job. She's not a citizen detective.
You had this conversation with her yourself.
Yes. That was weird, right? Just like Ken Hansen's weird, right? We've got guys in the location. We've got a alleged confession. So that's kind of, I had a bunch of buckets of suspects. I had Hansen. I had the Joyride guys. Charles Melquist has been brought up in this case a lot, and I don't think he's a bad suspect, right? You have to look at the murder of Bonnie Lee Scott, which was after the Grimes sisters. Bonnie Lee was rendered unconscious through a chokehold, right? Melquist learned it in the Army or wherever he was.
Charles Melquist, just to back up a little bit, was a sexual predator, violent sexual predator working that area kind of a little bit.
Yeah. And dates of Melquist, women who Melquist went out with, said that he tried to render them unconscious multiple times. So he was known for this, right? And then he killed Bonnie Lee Scott. Now, he also revisited Bonnie's body and cut her head off, right? That's a little different, right? But given that Grimes was prior to that, maybe Grimes was his first kill. Maybe, it wasn't. There were post-mortem marks in Patricia Grimes. There are 3 shallow marks on her chest that initially the coroner said were ice picks. Okay, you and I both know that when you grab someone with an ice pick, it's random, right? You're not controlling it. There are uniform puncture marks. To me, it looks like a garden fork. It looks like some sort of gardening equipment, and they weren't enough to kill her, but it was done post-mortem. Okay, that also made me think maybe Melquist went back to visit the bodies. Maybe he was, right, I've done enough cases where these guys come back sometimes and mess around with bodies, but, or maybe she...
All not to make this more complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated.
All horse staples have hay balers and hay
and
hay rakes, and
I went down that path. I'm an equestrian. I've been riding since I was a little girl. I know a lot about horses and equipment and things like that. So initially I said, what could this be? It wasn't. It was so short. The prongs were kind of like this. But I went down that path, right? I said, for sure, that needs to be looked at.
I did that too in cold case, not to interrupt, but there's a national registry of people involved in training horses and that. And
sure.
I called them. They were very interested and helpful, but I tried to get them to give me, try to see if they could find out anybody who was employed at the Idle Hour stables.
Yeah.
And they just didn't have records going back that far. But they were super helpful. It wasn't there.
Well, it also gets weirder when Melquist is arrested for Bonnie Lee Scott. Guess what is found in his trunk? A 3-prong garden fork. We've got Hansen, we've got Joyride guys, and we've got Charles Melquist. Or we've got a totally unknown perp.
Yeah.
Got a bunch of freaks running around out in that.
We've got people. We've got people to look at, right? So I started looking. And the more I looked, the more I believe that the Joyride guys were involved, right? Here's why. Hansen is complicated, right? It's back to Occam's razor, right? The simplest thing is it. If Hansen's involved, we've got Dennis Laffin or Hansen himself scouting girls in a movie theater. That's not, based on what I know, how Hansen worked. Right? He picked up hitchhikers and young kids and lured them in. Okay, let's just say that happened or he saw them. Then we've got to get word out to someone to transport them. It wasn't Laffin, right? Because Laffin was confirmed to be home that time. Like he's confirmed when the girls go missing, Laffin's home. He's located.
He's got an alibi.
He's got an alibi for after the movie, right? Then even if it is Hansen and let's say Dennis and Hansen talked to somebody outside the theater, this is getting really complicated, right? Then that person decided to transport them to Hansen's property. Well, Hansen also was home. Hansen was home with his wife, Beverly. He wasn't at the place where the Kittyland horses were. So we don't have cell phones, right? We're not talking. So like whoever was allegedly on Hansen's property where the girls' bodies were found would have to know that the girls were coming. That would be impossible to communicate in the time frame that we've got all of this going on without a cell phone. So that kind of made me think, maybe not Hansen.
Yeah,
although it's interesting.
I mean, you can go down a lot of rabbit holes.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, if Curtis is a pornographer and Kenneth's definitely trying to help him, afraid of him, and Curtis, this is a horrifying thing to say, but inside the realm of possibility, I've got a couple girls here for you, Curtis. I'm going to have these guys who one of them went to high school with Laughlin are going to transport her out or whatever.
I went that path too because I was like, I'm like, now I've got to connect my Joyride guys to Hansen, right? That was my transport guys, my guys out there. And that was the connection I made is that Dennis Laffin and my guy were in the same high school as I had pictures of them together. Holy crap. But still, my guys were seen on 35th and Sealy, the exact time that the Grimes sisters were last seen. Okay, Hansen and Laffin are home. We don't know who's out in Willow Springs, right, at that point. But then I find out that my guys went to the German Church Road place to party all the time. All the time.
So to maybe add a little clarity, you think there were 4 boys, teenagers in that car, and the Grimes sisters got into the car, something happened in the car, and that's when 2 of the boys booked from the car and went missing.
And they were seen running into the local bowling alley.
They identified those 2 boys?
Yes.
Because of what happened in the car prior to that.
Yes.
So they would have been, if not active participants, witnesses to it.
Yes. There was one other person left in the car at that time. I've interviewed him as well. He has since died, but his name has been given to, the sheriff's office before he died. So we could have had him, but.
And they didn't interview him?
They did not. So.
Just to reiterate, the sheriff's office chose not to interview a possible suspect in one of the most famous.
Well, yeah. I mean, and the thing is, so we're clear with this, the Chicago Police Department does not have jurisdiction on this case. Yeah. It was a missing for us. It's the murder now for the Cook County Sheriff, cold case people.
I think my guy, I don't know if that witness that was in the car with my guy went out to German Church Road. We don't know what happened to him. He could have been out there. He could not have been out there. During the confession that I know about from my guy didn't indicate that. It just indicated that he went out there for a prank, and he was going to prank him. And he was just going to make them take their clothes off by knife point. It's a pretty aggressive prank, right? Naked in the middle of winter where it's freezing. And then he was going to come back and get them, right? So they could just go home and pretend that never happened. No, it didn't happen. Possible. Something happened on the ride out or in the car. This person panicked and they were done.
At 35th and Seeley.
I think soon thereafter. Yeah. I mean, if you start, really piecing together, screams being heard in an alley, I don't know that these girls would have been able, the distance, right? This was a little bit of a drive, right? I know that if somebody put me in a car, I certainly would fight for 20 minutes before you take me.
I mean, now, put my detective shoes on here.
Please. We need your help.
We can exclude Dennis Laughlin, right? Because he is home.
He's home.
He's home. He has an alibi for the time.
So does Ken Hansen.
If it is true, and it sounds like we could prove that it's true, they are dead within a few hours of when they go missing.
If you believe the stomach contents theory and the lividity.
Right. So.
Right. Which I do. That's been confirmed medically by firsthand reports by doctors.
And aside from that, in the same vein, then we can exclude. I got reasons for being concerned about this a little bit, but we can exclude Kenneth Hansen for the same reason. He's home with his wife, who he later murdered, who committed suicide officially, but he almost certainly murdered her. So that's what concerns me about that.
Yeah.
Tell him I'm home. Okay, I will. Please don't beat the shit.
Beverly, went through a lot.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm just, putting that out there.
Sure.
So, okay, but let's say that we can exclude them based on alibi at the time. The problem of the proximity of where they're found to the horse stables is going to always been a problem since I've learned it. Like, this is an impossibility. Not so much an impossibility, though, because you have shown that the people you suspect are involved were very comfortable and knew that area and went there often.
So were most people in the neighborhood. Yeah, most teens.
So now you also have, unfortunately, she's deceased, but you have a third-party statement that you took from a woman of the subject who says basically what your theory is. And your theory is based on this conglomeration of evidence you've come together predominantly, or very importantly, her statement.
Yes, and she was incredibly scared for her life. Incredibly scared. She was reluctant to talk. I found her very credible, and I gave her name to the sheriff. And they allegedly interviewed her and didn't find her credible. I don't know if that interview ever happened.
Okay. So then, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Well, there is a connection between the gentleman with Kenneth Hansen and one of the people in the car, right? Is it possible that, they come out of the movie theater, the girls are standing there talking to a car, talking to the car. Is it possible that Kenneth Hansen somehow finds his way into the car?
Well, if you believe his wife, Beverly, he was home. But right. I mean, I hear what you're saying. It's just a lot.
It's like one of those, I'm feeling what you were saying earlier, that the chances of this murderer being in the movie theater at the same time and not being involved would be like beyond.
Well, it certainly presents a problem for prosecution.
Right.
But potentially you have to have an out. The out is his wife is his alibi right now.
Right.
In terms of moving forward. Now, how credible that alibi is, is what it is. But I think that the bigger issue right now is at this date and time, what are we, April the 29th, 2026, we have to deal with what we have in front of us, right?
And,
so
the clock is ticking. Right?
The clock is ticking.
And there's evidence that really also ties who I think did this, the Joyride guys, right? There were blue and gold fibers found under the girls' fingernails. Those are the De La Salle High School colors. My guy was wearing a Letterman jacket that night, and witness reports indicate that, he was seen, or a man in a Letterman's jacket matching those colors with slick back black hair was seen, talking to the Grimes sisters at some point.
Does that evidence still exist, or do you not?
I have evidence inventory from the original crime that indicates, that those fingernail clippings were collected. And yes, I have another report that says that it was blue and gold. Now, guess who else went to De La Salle? Dennis Laffin, right? But he didn't have slick black hair. He also didn't drive a split windshield Mercury.
And he's home. His alibi, how strong is his alibi?
I forgot who alibied him, a family member.
Yeah. But the point is here, all of these things, there's
a lot of
Occam's razor doesn't really apply here because there is no the theory that all things being equal, the most logical answer is correct. I don't know that there's a logical answer in this, but the one thing that I will say is there are people alive who you believe have culpability.
Yes.
And more than one?
All four of those guys, 3 of those 4 guys are now dead that were in the Joyride.
Then we have one on the Northwest Coast.
He just died. Yeah. I interviewed him, but he's gone.
Okay. So you got one guy still alive.
Yeah. And then there's an email that I received from a family member of his saying that, she'd like to talk because her uncle was involved, and turns out he was her uncle. But that's gone. That's in the wind. So we've got one person left, right? And so if I were a detective, and you are, it would seem like anyone who was on the street that night, who's still alive, who was ever interviewed about this homicide should be re-interviewed. Where were you? What were you doing? What did you see, right? And there aren't that many people alive, so this isn't really a big project. And, that hasn't happened, which is concerning. And it should be concerning to everyone.
Yeah, it has to be done. It has to be done almost immediately. I mean, because
time's ticking.
Yes.
Be in his 80s now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so let's synopsize just a little bit here. I mean, well, tell me your thoughts. Wrap this up a little bit for me here. Where are you at with it? Drives you crazy at night.
It keeps me up at night.
Yeah,
right. This is something, I'm like a dog with a bone, because it's right there. I've gotten to this guy. I've met him. It's really easy. He's not like, he's on the street running around with a gun. He lives in a beautiful house. He has no employment records after 1970 something. He did not come from a wealthy family. I still haven't been able to figure out his source of income. It's not his wife. I have theories on that. I can prove that he has mob ties. So we've got a suspect here that's sitting around, and he's not being interviewed. That really keeps me up at night. And so, where my project is that we'd like to see some sort of closure in this case, right? We'd like to solve it. The DNA in this case is, there's been developments this morning on that, but I can't discuss them. There is some physical evidence, right? The fibers. The case is solvable. It is solvable. I'm confident of it. It's going to take a lot of work, right? It's kind of like Schuessler-Peterson and Ken Hansen. That took years. And John Rotuno and his partner were relentless. So not only is this a sheriff investigation, we've now got to go take it to Cook County, right? The state's attorneys. Nobody likes to lose. This is not a shoo-in unless this guy can be talked to. Maybe he confesses. I don't know. Maybe he's about to die, right? Maybe we're going to get a break. Maybe he's going to tell us the one thing about this case that nobody knows. We've got a shot, but we've got to do it, right? And then if it's not him, and there's just all this stuff, that I'm finding that doesn't add up, or, then I guess we got another suspect, right, that we just can't get, because I don't know, but I do think the case is solvable. I've talked to detectives that have told me that they could solve a case. Why would somebody say that? What's stopping you?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you could answer that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There are answers. I don't like
and
most
this
of
is
them,
two
but-
little girls. These are two girls. They just went to go see an Elvis movie.
What were they, like 15 and 14?
They were 13 and 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got to do everything you can do while everybody's still alive to maybe help bring this together, because we've got a limited window. I don't know.
I hate hearing myself ask this question, but I just think it's germane based on where we are and where we live. Ever come across any indication that anybody involved in this has political ties to anybody now that
Yes.
might not?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
enough said.
Yes. There's a reason this case isn't being solved.
Boom.
Yeah, but I might be able to help with that.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a reason. Why wouldn't you go and interview? Hey, at least interview Patricia Grimes. She's not a suspect, but she was there that night. She's never been interviewed. Riddle me that.
Yeah, that's insane.
I have a good friend that has a relationship with her, so that probably can be tied up. And then I think that, we get people motivated, or we find somebody who is motivated and who
I'll
has
talk to that guy.
has the.
I'll drive you there. I'll be happy to take you.
I think that I agree with you. I think that at the very least, answers have to be gotten.
Sure.
Have to be documented, and then because now is the time.
Right.
There's no tomorrow in this case, right?
Right.
As we found out, because the last time you and I talked, the guy on the Northwest Coast was still alive.
Yeah. He's.
So that's the arrogance of time that can't afford, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So
How many hours do you think you've put into this?
Years.
Years.
Years. This is years. I could write 10 books on this case with everything that I've found out. We only have a little bit of time here, but years of work. And I'm not stopping. I mean, listen, usually I'm assigned to a project and I get off and I make a TV show. This is personal. This is personal because I've worked with enough detectives and I'm a pro cop, right? All the way. That the answers are simple. Right? Yeah. Either the evidence was ruined in a storage locker, the dog ate my, DNA, or my guy has an alibi. Here it is. We've already checked this out. There's no point in us going to see him because we've alibied him. Okay, that's not being told to me. You know, just the fact that there haven't been witnesses interviewed is enough of a red flag for me. But then I can tell you about 1,000 more red flags in this case. So then you have to ask yourself, well, why?
Right.
Okay, so we could roll with this for we could do a Joe Rogan thing and go 4 hours, but the point we wanted to get across with this, though, I think we've gotten across, right? This case is live, has legs, can be solved potentially, or at the very least, there are questions that have to be answered even if it can't be solved, right? If it turns out to be the boogeyman and it's somebody out there that we don't know about, then that's part of tough life. But there are things that can and should be done. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Every lead should be, tracked down to the end of the earth while these people are still alive. Again, we're not talking about many people. This is stuff that I've been able to do in, myself. So yes, every stone should be unturned. And then when that is, maybe we can rest. Yeah. But it's not at all what's happening.
Yeah, and we could go a lot of directions with this case, with this podcast, but we try and keep it focused on victims and victims' families, right? I mean, that's ultimately our goal. That we do cases about victims whose cases are solved, but we just don't want the victim to be forgot about for various reasons. We just did a 6-year-old boy was killed by his foster mother. I just don't want his name to be forgotten about.
No.
And then we do cases that are open, as this one is, that we don't want, or Becky Breedlove or others that we don't want to be forgotten. This one in particular has work to be done on. I wish we had this kind of stuff to do on Becky Breedlove because I'd be out doing it. So I think we've gotten that out there, hopefully that message that this case is alive. Chris, thoughts? What have I missed?
No, I think you just nail it. There's information that can be attained one way or another, either pro or con in terms of this guy's involvement. He's still alive. It's ridiculous that he wouldn't have been interviewed already.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing is always to get the information you want, right? And get answers that you want. The second best thing sucks, but you get answers that don't pan out the way you hope they would.
Sure.
The third thing is unacceptable, and I can hear, as a young detective, my sergeants telling me, a week into a murder, why haven't you talked to that person? Go get tonight, before you come back in, I want you to tell me what they had to say, right? And that's the way I was taught to do murder investigations.
Sure.
And that is the third option that's unacceptable, right? And so that needs to be done. But okay, so we've closed our end. Michael, close out on your end. Tell me your thoughts and how you want to leave this.
We're in production on a documentary about this. I'm looking for an ending, one that makes sense. Because again, like you've said, the story's been told a lot, right? Ken Hansen's been brought up a lot. Charles Mulquist has been brought up a lot. The Joyride guys, they've been brought up, maybe not to the extent that, I know about them now, the information that we know, but they've been brought up. And we have to do everything we can to solve this crime or die trying. You know what I mean? Yeah. We gotta go. We gotta get it. I think we've got a year, maybe 3 at the max, given what I know and about how my guy's doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think everyone's waiting. Everyone's waiting to ever have this case wrap itself up, and I believe it's solvable. Yeah. I believe this one is. I do.
Well, I want to say, first of all, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It means a lot to us. It's been fun. You're fascinating, and you are intensely bulldogging in this, and I admire that a great deal. I also appreciate the fact that you are trying to get answers and not trying to just make a documentary that exposes weaknesses. That's low hanging fruit.
No.
And you really want answers, and I admire that. And that's what I hope every homicide detective wants, and I'm sure investigative reporters. I hope that's their end game too.
Yeah.
I think you've done a great job on this, and I admire your work. And whatever I can do, I will.
Listen, I would love to be there for whoever wants to catch this guy to capture it, and give all the credit to everyone who wants the credit.
Yeah.
This is about solving this crime, and if I'm not there to capture it, that's great too.
Yeah.
It's just
As long as it gets done.
long as someone does the right thing.
Ideally, while their sister is still alive.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
No, you guys were
Okay.
great. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you.
Chris, what do you got? Anything?
We got some exciting stuff coming up. Next week's going to be a big week.
Yeah. Yeah, we got former superintendent coming on, going to talk with us. It'll be good. I don't know we'll have too many things as fascinating as this one today,
Yeah.
but we'll work on it.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. Hey, thank you guys very much for joining in. Please like and subscribe. Hit us up on the website. Always you get me at my email, mike@detectivestory.net. And look at our Patreon page. Join that. It helps a lot. Helps us continue to produce content. So we appreciate all that. We appreciate your time today. And, please keep Rick Coyle, John Bartholomew, and his partner in your prayers. And we will talk to you soon. Take care of yourself.
Be safe.
Take care of each
Stay
other.
safe.
Adios.